Hello, my friends. Here's your coach, Mr. Magno, and we are on Module 4, Lesson 21. What are we doing today? Well, the objective is to explain the size of the product. And remember that the product is the answer of a multiplication problem. Okay? So that's what the product is. And we're going to relate that fraction and decimal and their equivalents to multiplying a factor by 1. Okay, let's see what that means. Let's start simple here. So we have here's the problem. It's 2/2 of what? 3/4, which is 2/2 of 3/4, correct? What is 3 times 2 equals 6, and 2 times 4 equals 8. So our answer is 6/8. That was simple, don't you think? Okay, now can we simplify these numbers? Well, let's see if these two numbers are part of a multiples of 2's. So here's the sequence. If you can see that 8 is part of the sequence when you find the multiples of 2, and 6 is part of the same sequence. So that take us to this part of the solution of the problem, to divide both numbers by 2, and that will be 6 divided by 2 equals 3, and 8 divided by 2 equals 4. Oh, look at this. It is the same answer. I wonder why. Well, let me explain to you here. It is because this number, it's like a 1. And as you can see, when you multiply a number times 1 equals the same number over here. Okay, let's move on to the next problem. Okay, so basically what we're doing on this next problem, it's similar, but now that this time we're going to show decimals. Well, let me go back and show decimals on the other one. So let's look at this. So now we have 3/4 as the answer. So 3/4. Now, decimals come in two forms. Actually, three forms. Decimals come in tenths, hundredths, and thousandths, as you can see. Now, to make it into any of those, we need to multiply it by a number that will equal one of these numbers, a tenth, a hundredth, or a thousandth. So let's see. Understanding that the 4 is a number that is, it's a quarter, it's like a quarter. So we can multiply this by 25. Okay? If we do this, we multiply 25 times 3, that's going to yield a total of 75, and 4 times 25 equals 100. So as you can see, this 3/4, when we write it into decimals, is gonna land right here on this part. So now we know that this is 75/100. So now we write it as a decimal. Okay, that is part 1. So these two numbers, remember, this is a fraction, and this is the decimal, and they both have the same value. All right, let's try a couple of more problems. We're going to multiply. Let me get my black marker. This is 1/5 times. Okay, see this one right here? Remember, this is a 1. We're multiplying by 1. Okay, because when you divide, 2 divided by 2 equals 1. Okay, so now you know that's going to yield the same answer, the same number. Now, 1 times 2 equals 2, and 5 times 2 equals 10. Okay, so now we have 2/10. Here we go, and this is why we multiplied it by that 2, because that made it into tenths. Now we can write it as a decimal, which is decimal point 2. All right, let's try it one more time with, how about 1/4? Well, we have 1/4 right here. Do we know any numbers that we can makes that number a decimal? Yes, we do. Remember that 25, right? Because it is a quarter. So 4 times 25 equals 100. And 1 times 25 equals 25. So that is one way. So now we can write this as a decimal number. It's going to be decimal, sorry. My apologies. That was not written correctly. It's decimal point 25 hundredths. Okay, so that's one way. Let's look at another way. What if you say, what if I multiply 1/4 times, instead of 25, we can do it to 220. Well, let's see if that's going to give us a decimal. So 1 times 250 equals 250. I'm sorry, I said 220. No, it is 250. So now we multiply 4 times 250. That's going to equal 1,000. As you can see, that is also a decimal, but it's written in the thousands place. So let's write this answer here. So the answer would be, in decimal, is going to be 250,000. So 1/4 can be written as 250,000. Now, the most obvious answer would be, you know that 1/4 equals 25 hundredths, right? Because it's 25 cents out of a dollar. All right, now let's play with this number 1/8. Okay, so 1/8, it's a number that has to be multiplied by, we got to multiply by a number that will make it equal either 10. Let me show you. I'm going to write the three numbers here, and we're going to decide which one is going to be the one that is going to be the winner. So those are our choices. Can I multiply the 8 times a number that will equal 10? Nope, that will not work. Can I find a number that I can multiply 8 times another number that will make it equal 100? And I don't think there is one, because 8 times 10 equals 80, and 8 times 12, it's 116. So that will not work. No, that will be 96. So it will not work. But the only number that I know it works is 125. So here's what happens. And let me X this one out, because we cannot convert it into a decimal by converting the denominator into 100. But we can convert it into 1,000. 8 times 125 equals this number right here. So now we know 1 times 125 is 125. And now we can write this as a decimal. So it's going to be decimal point 125,000. Now remember that there are some things that you already know, and you have to keep this in mind because it is important. You'll know that 1/2 equals 5/10. It also equals 50 hundredths. This is just a review, so you remember this. You should write this on your agenda or somewhere you're going to look at them all the time. And you also know that 1/3 equals 0.333. Now let's move on to 1/4. 1/4 equals 2,500. How about 1/5? 1/5 would always equal the same value, 20 hundredths. Or in this case, 2/10. Let me see. Is there another one that you should always keep in mind? Oh, the next one will be the one that we just did on the top. 1/8. 1/8 always equals, always 125,000. My friends, watch this video, write the notes, memorize it, because this needs to be on your memory. The notes must be in your mind, in your understanding of the logic. Signing out, your coach, Mr. Mago.